Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Brooke Mitchell, and today's webinar is Get ready for the ultimate gorilla photo expedition, presented by Rich de Gouveia, NatHab expedition leader and pro photographer. Thank you so much for being here today, Rich. Over to you.
Thanks, Brooke, and welcome, guys. Really happy new year. It's exciting to be in a new year with new travels and so many prospects of amazing photographs on the horizon. And always on my list of great places to go is to go see the gorillas. I love the gorillas. I've done it a lot of times. And for any of you that are preparing to do it this year or thinking about doing it in the future, this is a great place to be to learn a little bit more about what the itinerary has, what to pack, what the weather's like, what camera stuff we would need, and the little details that'll get us through to a better understanding of the trip in general. So who am I? I am a NatHab guide. I've been with NatHab for 10 years now. I love photography. I have been a Sony Alpha ambassador. I love teaching photography and being with people and just showing the wonders of nature through photographs and through sharing of information. Now, when it comes to NatHab's gorilla photo expedition, specifically this itinerary works in a number of ways, and we've tried our best to create a photo expedition that covers a lot of diverse landscapes, lots of different things to photograph, and tick off a few bucket list items, obviously the gorilla being one of them. But along the way, we've tweaked and twisted and changed and done things to make this itinerary even better. So even if you've done it in the past, it's worth doing again. Like I said, I've done the gorillas probably about 130 odd times, 140 odd times, somewhere there. And each time I go, it's amazing. And in order to try and make it more photocentric, what we've done is we've actually created the 40 or the 13-day trip, one that's photographic and one that's not. So for those that aren't interested in photographing but still want to go into Rwanda, they can go along that route and just do the ultimate gorilla expedition. And those who are more photocentric like yourselves is to do the photo expedition. So let's look at where we go. This wonderful trip goes through multiple locations. We start off in a place called Entebbe, which is down here. There's a beautiful boutique hotel that we spent some time at called Hotel Number 5. And we have changed our itinerary from last year, or just before last, end of 2023, to go to Murchison Falls. And it's an amazing, amazing place that is right on the Nile River. And there is a massive falls called Murchison Falls, and it creates beautiful spaces. And what we do there is we actually do some wild camping. So your tents seem pretty simple, but they've got, for those sharing, got two single beds. For those in a double accommodation, we'll have a beautiful double bed with a bucket shower. So you order your shower, and 15 minutes or 10 minutes later, the guy comes and it's a talking shower because they pull a pulley and pull the water up and fill it up. And they say, "Are you ready?" And you're naked and waiting. And then you shower yourself down. And it's a really nice, wild way of starting. And it's a beautiful place. Just the scenery around Murchison Falls is wonderful. And the safari itself is great. And sitting around a fire in the middle of Africa and listening to the sounds through a tent, there is quite simply no other feeling like it. You are just immersed in this wonder. From there, we head to one of my favorite lodges, which is called Ndali Lodge. It's probably one of my favorite lodges in Africa. It's very simple, very rustic, straw roofs, limited Wi-Fi. The food is off the chain. The views are ridiculous, and we get to enjoy this for 2 nights while looking for chimps. And again, accommodation simple but comfortable and beautiful. I'll explain more about the wildlife as we move through this. We then move down all the way to Buindi impenetrable forest, where we go. People have called these like tree houses, and we stay at Bohoma Lodge, and you're in these little log cabins. Again, very comfortable. Food is great, but we're inside the national park. We're inside Windy Impenetrable Forest. So you're surrounded by the sounds of birds. And what's beautiful is the photography from the rooms. While if your trek ends a little early, you can just sit there with a camera and all the birds are flying through the canopy. And because we're in this really sloped up, a lot of stairs going up, you have this different perspective where you can actually be in the canopy and be photographing some of the birds and everything. And you have a lot of monkeys that come through. And from there, we take a long drive and we cut through and we go down into Rwanda, where we spend some time in Volcanoes National Park doing another 2 gorilla treks. And we stay at a little boutique hotel called 5 Volcanoes. And it's very pretty, very comfortable, and gets us to exactly where we're going to be. So that's the accommodation part. It gives you a little idea of what we deal with and where we stay. But the most important part of understanding what we're doing is to know before you go. Weather is an important part of any trip and the preparation for that trip. So let me play you a little video so you get an idea of what a rainforest is.
Welcome to Kibali Forest. We're in the rainforest. It's raining. Go figure it out. What a cool experience. We're now going to cruise through here to look for the chimps. It's a beautiful day. Thunderstorm overhead. We're all well prepared with ponchos, rain covers, all the rest, and we'll go see what the chimps are doing in this craziness. The rain's coming down harder and harder as we're going along. Just found some fresh chimpanzee dung, and hopefully they're not too far away. The rain doesn't bode well for them being on the ground. These chimps, because of the rain, are up in trees. So it goes. We use what we use, and we're going back to a fig tree now where we initially found them. There's some shouting from that side, so let's go see what they're doing. Yeah, they're coming down. Come with me, come with me. We managed to find them. Patience paid off. One of the males came down. He was cruising around. He put on a bit of a show for us, a yawn. Just watching a young female in a tree that walked up. She was trying to get to him, a bit more afraid of us. Males are definitely more habituated in that way. And eventually she got around, he got around. They came together, quick mating session, and then off. Now the sun's out. It's a beautiful afternoon in the forest. It's wet, it smells amazing, the sounds are amazing, and we're going to head back towards the lodge.
So being in a rainforest for a lot of the time, being prepared for rain is beautiful, but photographically it offers a lot of different things. The views and landscapes from different places with the clouds that roll in with rain obviously create very spectacular photos. And also the idea of photographing these animals when they're wet creates a sense of texture and beauty, and the glints of light that come out of the raindrops really can add a lot of depth to an image. But we do get a lot of sunny days, and we go through some really beautiful places where both landscape photos and wildlife photos are there. But being prepared for rain is a very important part of this. It's funny though that most of the time we go out there, it doesn't rain. Like I've had groups for months where we didn't see a drop of rain, and then one group rocks up and it doesn't stop raining. So it really is luck of the draw, and depending on what your attitude is, you can have the most fun of your life in an absolute torrential downpour. So weather is an important part of it. Packing is the next part. So let's look at a bit of packing. Obviously, all of our stuff that we do with NatHab, specifically our Africa journeys, because of the small planes that we often travel on, require us to have a soft-sided duffel. You can have two wheels attached, but hard sides can often stop the bag going onto things. So think about that when you're packing. Make sure you have a nice backpack, because when we're doing these trips, you don't have to carry the backpack, but having a good backpack, we're going to be putting food for the lunches. Your packed lunches will go in your bag. You'll need to carry sufficient water. You'll need to carry camera equipment, and the camera equipment is very important. Dry bags work really well for the camera equipment, so that if you do get caught in a torrential downpour and you feel like your camera gear might get damaged, you can plug it into that. Hats, buffs are important. Now, since COVID, we do wear masks into the gorillas, and they will supply those surgical masks. But in Uganda, specifically in the chimps and the gorillas, you can use a buff to cover up, and obviously a good pair of boots. Now, having them worn in is quite an important part, because there are times we can cover. I've had walks where we cover 10 miles in a day. And if you're coming with new boots and trying to wear them in, you're just going to get blisters and be uncomfortable. So before you go on your trip, if you're deciding to buy some new boots, put them on, walk every day for a couple of weeks, a mile or two, just to wear them in, so that when you're in the jungle, you know that you have the right equipment. Yes, we've had people rock up where the boot disintegrates because it's been sitting in the cupboard. You need to make sure that that equipment's sorted. There's only so far that gaffer tape can get you in terms of wrapping up with the duct tape. So I'll take you through another little video that I put together for preparation.
Good morning, folks. Right, so I am in Kibali Rainforest at the moment. We're busy cruising through with the guests. We've just had a chimp experience, and I thought I'd give you a little rundown of what you are going to need on your journey into this amazing place. So for the most part, our walks are vary in difficulty, from pretty easy in the forest here to really hard, and just going after chimps can be quite difficult. The most important things we're going to need are hiking boots, longer socks, so that we can tuck our pants in, because there are things out here called safari ants. Our normal safari shirts, which will be kept down to keep your arms from being done. Look at this beautiful fig tree here with big buttress roots. Quick dry pants work really well, and you'll pack some rain pants for the gorillas. The other thing that you can bring if you want are gaiters, but these are supplied in the gorilla areas, so it's not necessary to get the extra ones if you don't feel the need. A rain jacket is very important. We're in a rainforest, so don't forget a rain jacket, a good light one that won't be too hot, will really serve you well in terms of everything there. And a good backpack for cameras, to carry your raincoat, your water, water bottle, NatHab or otherwise. We try and keep our plastic consumption down as much as possible, and refilling water bottles is a great way to do that. For now, binoculars are important. Camera straps are quite important for the photographers. So I have this Peak Design strap, which works really well. And I also have this Joby strap, which straps into the bottom of that. And there are sling straps that go across me, which allow me to just keep my cameras in the right place and look after everything.
So when we're talking about those camera straps, I find it very important, the strapping that we choose, just based on the fact that it allows for you to tuck a camera in behind your bum. If it's slung over your shoulder, it's very comfortable to carry. And when hooked in correctly, it can be slipped in behind your bum. So as you're walking through dense forest, you don't have cameras lugging off the side of you and banging onto things. So another thing to check out before you come is the comfort of a strap, and make sure you have the right gear. When you get to us, if you're having trouble with it, we can always fix it, but it's best to try and figure it out before you come, so that you know that that is comfortable, that the camera sits nicely just behind your buttocks, and that means that you'll be able to easily carry stuff. Obviously, there's a world full of lenses available to us, and trying to pack for a photographic trip to get the right gear to take the photos that you need is very important. Being in a rainforest has two parts to it. One, good gear that needs to stay dry. Two, low light. When you're in a forested area, you have a canopy over you, so even when the sun's out, there's not a lot of light in there. And this means that we need to consider the lenses or the different types of camera systems that we can bring in. And you really want something that has a fast lens that allows a lot of light in. So anything from 2.8, f2.8 and wider will allow for really wonderful shots and give you the best chance. Some of the times we're shooting at f2.8 at 200th of a second at 3200 ISO. So you think about how dark that is, and you're trying to freeze a moving animal, and something like a chimp can be crazy. They can move around, they can run, they can throw things, it's very difficult to freeze action. So a fast lens is going to be imperative to getting the photos you need. The other part of this is that you want enough memory space when you're out there, because you want to take a lot of photos. You do not want to be messing around with, oh, I can only take 200 photos in here because I only have 1,000 photos for the trip. On one of these trips, I generally take about 10,000 photographs. I'll whittle that down to probably 200 to 300 by the end of the trip, once I've edited them and culled off. But I take lots and lots and lots of photographs and work through those images in order to try and get rid of the crap and keep the good stuff. And this is a very important aspect. Phones work wonderfully well. The new phones are amazing. One at taking photos, especially in low light, because of the different types of softwares and everything that are put in there that allow you to take slow shutter speeds and then recover them afterwards. And also for video. A lot of video that I take in the forest will be done with a phone because it's so quick, it's so easy. The sound quality is really good. So choose a phone really well. Your cameras can be anything from a bridge camera through to a very expensive DSLR to a APS-C sensor. That doesn't matter. The effective good length for the apes themselves is around the 70 to 200 mark. It allows for good portraiture and also a bit of wide angle. I also like to take in a wide angle. My wide angle of choice is a 16 to 35 because it allows some real width when it comes to taking these photos. And that allows me to also get some low angle shots, and I'll show you some examples where we can make the animals look bigger and put them more in situ. And also for the landscapes that we encounter along the way, a good landscape lens is cool. There are some specialty lenses that you could look at, like a 135 1.8, a 50 1.4. All the normal portrait lenses that we would use for portrait photography in humans work really well with the gorillas and the chimps because we get quite close to them, and that shallow depth of field can really pull things out, as well as having the extra shutter speed to be able to freeze these beautiful animals in their environment without too much worry about that low light situation. We do also have a need for a zoom lens, at least some form of telephoto. So I often take 100 to 400 just in terms of packing size and space. So I will have 100, 400, a 70 to 200, and a 1635 packed with two bodies, one for each of those. Or what you could do is you could stick a 2 times teleconverter onto a 70 to 200 2.8, which effectively gives you the same lens as this. And that then means that you're carrying less weight, because weight restriction is a big thing. A rain cover is very cool. I didn't put it in here, but Peak Design have some very nice covers that allow things. I'm a bit of a Peak Design junkie. I'm like a groupie. I just follow them, and they create some really cool stuff. And I have way too many of their bags, but their camera bags are really well made in terms of dealing with weather, easy to pack, can get on an aeroplane. So all of those things come into packing the photo gear. One last video about the different locations we go to and what we're packing and what they're like. Good morning. We are leaving on our first gorilla trek, and we have an entire entourage of porters, and this is just to explain a little bit about the treks itself. Most of the stuff we need is exactly the same as what we have in the chimps. We'll have gaiters and nice hiking boots, long pants, long shirt, a raincoat pack because of the fact that we are in a rainforest. Some of the walking gets done outside of the park itself because they try and keep it as easy as possible. Walking through the jungle can be a little bit arduous. While it's beautiful, it can be tough on the legs. And so we're going to find the easiest route in. With NetApp, we supply one porter to you guys, which will look after your bag. It's my suggestion that you take a second. This allows for a push-pull effort if the climbing gets tough. The extra porter would cost about $20. That includes a tip, and really makes a big difference to the walk. So in the background, up the top there, that's the forest that we're going to. So we'll walk along the road, making it as easy as possible for you all, and see what's happening. Welcome to windy, impenetrable forest. This is a crazy cool environment, but dense and thick, and this is where the porters really help. It's with the different getting you through all the little bits and pieces, under logs, over logs, up hills, down hills. We've just finished a trek with the gorillas, which was spectacular. We try and keep a distance of about 10 meters, but these guys don't understand the difference between what 10 meters is and 2 meters is. So there are times that we get closer, and we try and respect their space as much as possible. But it was an amazing trek, and I hope that you have one when you come visit. Every day is different. Here we're walking straight into the forest, prepared for another day of trekking. We've got our porters, and we're always in a point where we lead with the slowest person. This is a full day event, so it's not about chasing to try and get there. We're not trying to test anyone's fitness, but being in the forest really early is quite spectacular for the light and just for the scenery. And at the moment, we're probably about 200 meters, like 300 yards away from our hotel, and getting closer on the way to a gorilla family. So some days they're really close. We don't know where they're going to be later, but very cool nonetheless. Welcome to Rwanda and Volcanoes National Park. As you can see, it's a little bit more open, and we're at higher altitude. So we start at about 8,000 feet here, and these treks can go anything upwards to 10,000 plus, but for the most part, we're trying to get you the easiest walks possible. It's a very muddy terrain,
and can be quite sticky. Again, our one porter we provide is great, but taking a second one is really powerful in terms of helping you get through some of the thicker parts, stickier parts, and just making sure you keep your balance and enjoy the walk as much as possible. Gorillas here are slightly bigger based on the fact they've been pushed up in altitude. So their hair is longer, they have a little reddish tinge on their forehead, and they're really beautiful. Love them. And have been habituated for a long time. So we've been walking for about 2 miles now, fairly flat, but again, every walk is unique. We don't know what we're going to encounter, and that's our story. So every day is different, and 3 lucky walks, and we're now climbing a bit of a mountain, and it's a much longer walk. We've been in the forest for about 45 minutes now, scaling through deep jungle, avoiding nettles. So everything varies. Every time is unique, every time is different, and it's the way the cookie crumbles. So we prepare for this. It's always good to get fit and ensure that you're in the best physical condition for something like this. Just makes your trip that much more easy and enjoyable.
So I hope that explains a bit more about it. As you can see, that last trek, specifically that day, was quite challenging. Some of the guests were pushed to the end of their ability, but they all made it. And I think it's part of it. I think it's part of the whole thing to have a little bit of excitement. Some of the other formalities before arriving, especially for this trip where we're crossing the border, it works really well to get a East Africa tourist visa before you arrive. You have to get a visa before arriving in Uganda. Some people just get the Uganda visa, and then when we get to the Rwanda crossing, we go through an immigration process here, and you can purchase another visa, but it costs exactly the same amount. It takes exactly the same amount of paperwork as doing the Uganda visa. So just get the East Africa tourist visa. It'll make the flow when we get to this point a lot easier across the border. But we get to see a lot of things. We will have 2 guides, depending on how big the group is. There are normally 2 local guides that go with us, which is awesome. As much as I've been there a lot of times, I will never know the place the way these guys do. And they just add such fun and such character. The people in Uganda and Rwanda are super friendly. They love having tourists around and chit chat. A lot of waves, lots of highs, lots of asking for pencils. It's super fun. Our transportation through the trip, we do boats, we do vehicles, and we do aircraft. So we're generally in these smaller aircraft that seat 12 people. There are 2 flights, 1 flight that we make on this trip from Murchison Falls down to Ndali. No, sorry, 2 flights that we make, and then from Ndali across to Bwindi. So there are 2 flights, but we will always have these modified extended Land Cruisers with pop-up tops for when we're on safari and when we're moving through. And then we obviously have our feet. And then the first part of the whole trip, we have boats. We do a lot of stuff on the Nile River. And I like to see the first part of it as almost like a water safari. There is vehicle safaris, but really the highlight for me in that area is the Nile, the Murchison Falls. Let's get to some photos there. Murchison Falls is an incredible point where the Nile River gets squeezed through this tiny little gap, and millions upon millions of gallons of water get squeezed through this tiny little crevice, and it's roaring and it's water filled and it's super fun. Really beautiful to photograph. Having a tripod on this trip is quite a cool idea, especially for this bit here where you can do some slow shutter stuff and create a bit of movement within the water. And then there's also, oh, sorry, this is jumping around. And then there's also moments where we get into the water and get into the spray and feel a little wet and really touch Africa in a very different way. So it's a really beautiful part. And the first part, as we cruise around Murchison Falls, we have two very long boat rides where we go one down to the delta where it opens up a little bit more towards Lake Albert. It deltas into Lake Albert, and we can see elephants, a lot of hippos, crocodiles, and the bird life is through the roof. So when we're thinking photography, if you're into bird photography, even having that little bit extra of a 600 to get a bit closer, or a higher megapixel camera that allows you to crop a little bit in, will give you great opportunities to capture things like the African skimmers, the malachite kingfishers going into the water. We often have pied kingfishers flying behind us and diving into the water. We have hippos coming out, and again, because the boats are so low, we get to go really low profile down and get some unique angles on these different things. Also seeing things like elephants and the bigger stuff. We can see lions and leopards from the water. Murchison, I would say, is a beautiful park that has an interesting history, because when we're driving around, there is a oil drill in the middle of the park, and it can be quite an eyesore. But incredibly, the knock-on effect, while that is very negative in its own right, the knock-on effect is that the people who own the drill have beefed up anti-poaching, because there's less people moving through, because they don't want anyone coming close to the oil. So the animals have thrived in the event that this oil drill or this drilling is going on in the park. It can divide people, but we have to try and see the positives, because it's helping in some way. And then the landscapes are really, really beautiful. Some really nice open landscapes, lots of giraffe, lots of buffalo. We do see lion, we do see leopard occasionally, and it's more for that. While we're in Murchison Falls, we also have a stop where we go to the Bodongo forest and we go look for the chimps there. So this is a new part to this whole thing, where we have two different forests we go to see chimps. The first being Bodongo, which is really beautiful, a dense forest. You can find lions inside them, and it's a pretty wild spot because it's right by Murchison. And then we move on and we go into the forests where we start to photograph and see beautiful things. And we get to get really nice and close and see these animals in their natural environment. And just being immersed in the forest itself is something to behold. So I'm going to play a video and let you be immersed in the forest for a moment. The forest is a beautiful place to lose yourself. We do a lot of looking up as we go through. Sometimes the gorillas on the trees, a lot of the time the chimps are in the trees. We look for our opportunities, and there are moments where we as guides will take you into a moment of mindfulness. Sometimes it's just about being present, just about being in that forest. And then other times we'll be there to guide you to say, look at that photo, think about this. We're there to help your photographic journey, to help you with your settings, to get you to create and take some of the most amazing photographs you can ever take. Here's us entering into the forest, into Bundi, and there's so many moments that can be captured. So let's start off with the chimps. The Budongo forest, I've only done 2 or 3 times, and it's been beautiful. The chimps, they're a little wilder than the ones in Kibali, which get walked a lot more often. But the moment can go from one side to another. One of the other guides that I know very well and we chat often, he had 40 chimps around him with babies, and super chilled in Budongo. I've had most of them in trees and looking around, and we create unique spots when they're up in the trees. We have to look for ways to put them in that natural environment. So we're looking for windows to photograph through. And as you're with your guide, we will be the ones saying, come over here, come over, look at this, put you in a place, think about this. And don't be shy that when you're on the trip with your expedition leader, that if you're having a problem or if you need assistance with something, to just say, have a look, Rich, have a look at this. Is this coming out okay? That gives me the opportunity to help you because I can't take the photos for you. We're often, because we're in jungles, we're shooting through vegetation. It's dense. You don't just want them in open areas. You want people to feel like they are in the jungle with you, that they're looking into this little secret world through these little windows of leaves and everything. And I love the bokeh that's created by foreground blur, especially with fast lenses. Kibali itself is quite a dense forest. It's beautiful, really beautiful, amazing birds. Sometimes we cross over green pitters, Narina trogons, bar-tailed trogons. You can get in these forests, really, really pretty. But the chimps are our highlight, and we're always looking to show people and try to tell stories while we're in there. And being able to go wide enough and keep that shutter speed fast enough to stop motion, even if it is a yawn or a chew or something like that, is very, very interesting. Sometimes they let us get really close. This guy allowed me to sit on the same log as him for about 40 minutes. And he was just watching everyone while he relaxed and looked at me and then looked back. Really beautiful, beautiful moments. Not often do we see babies down, but the more I've done it, the more habituated the females are becoming and coming down and being with us. But when these opportunities go, you need to take thousands of photographs and just be part of it all. As I said earlier, both with chimps and gorillas, we try and maintain a distance of at least 10 meters. Now, this photo was taken pre-COVID, so nobody had masks on. Now we all wear masks in the surgical masks into the chimps. But while we keep these distances, they're moving, so they may walk right past you. I've had clients that were knocked over by chimps. I've had them hit with sticks. I had one lady who got a nice big black eye, and she was just so intent on me taking a photo of her so she could send it back to her kids to show them that she'd got a black eye from a chimp. What a cool experience. And it's about creating these moments where we're showing the reality of what these guys are living in, because I believe that the tourism that we do is so positive to these animals. It allows them to thrive because they're worth more alive than dead, that people, the communities around are less intent on removing the forest because it means more to them being there than not. We then move on to the gorillas in Burundi. Now, Burundi Impenetrable National Park is something to behold. It is just, I want to go in there and get lost for 4 days. There are elephants, forest elephants inside there. It is just so dense and beautiful. I really just want to get lost in there, but not with any clients. So don't worry, we aim to get you out and comfortable. But it allows for some really amazing spaces. But because it's so thick, sometimes we end up closer than those 10-meter gaps that we try. A baby like this, all the parents were a bit further back. He's inquisitive. He comes right up front. We take a few photos. We get you guys to step back, and maybe even the trackers may push it back towards mom to just try and keep that healthy distance. But oftentimes we need to have that fast shutter speed to capture the moments, like play like this, where they're swinging in a tree and trying to do stuff. And I remember we sat under this tree for half an hour watching these babies play. The moms were sleeping. One of the moms was actually reaching over to try and grab one of the other people's legs. It was beautiful. And we can create some beautiful portraiture. Their faces are so expressive. Their eyes are expressive. And when we're taking photos in the jungles, we're waiting for that look up moment where the eyes get this beautiful glint of light, which just gives the face a little bit more depth. The little babies are inquisitive and will peek around corners. And that wide angle lens that I was talking about can create some really beautiful space when you get really wide and really low. And again, we can't move very far. So sometimes we're stuck in this dense point and they're walking past. And all you'll have to do there is you show your submissive pose, you go down, you look at your camera, you open it wide up, and you shoot from the ground up and take amazing images. Silverbacks in Burundi, most families have one, maybe two silverbacks. The families have split up a few times. The families in Rwanda can have a couple more. Again, that look up moment that I was telling you about, just to look out for. These guys eat figs. The ones in Burundi are on the verge, or should be called a different subspecies to the mountain gorillas in Rwanda, because these guys eat fruits and the ones in Rwanda don't. And we can get beautiful portraits. So this guy having his sleep, the little ones playing in the tree, the eyes of another young one looking at us. This is still a very memorable moment where we had walked for about 5 hours. I remember having to really motivate one of the clients to keep going because the walk had got tough. We had walked over 2 mountains at that stage, and the gorillas were kept on moving ahead of us. And eventually we got into them, and as we got into them, there was a torrential downpour. I mean, absolutely torrential. And the gorillas climbed in under this bush, and we all squeezed in there with them to get shelter. And we sat for an hour within a few feet of these beautiful gorillas, all just relaxing. And this photo opportunity arose with this guy. And then another moment of pure peace with a female and her baby. Again, it's about time. It's just about spending the time with them. And on our photo safari, we have 4 treks with gorillas. So you have 2 in Uganda and 2 in Rwanda, which gives you the best opportunity to get beautiful photographs, at least somewhere along the line. In Rwanda, The forest is a little different. There's a lot more nettles, stinging nettles. So we often wear our raincoats and rain pants in here to try to protect our legs more than from rain, and it can rain, but from being stung by the nettles. The nettle sting is very innocuous. It gives you a little burny itch for about 5 minutes, and so long as you don't rub it, you'll be fine. And so long as you don't face plant into it, which is where porters come in handy, you'll be wonderfully set. There's less of a canopy over it, and there are these grassy knolls out here which allow for sometimes some beautiful space. And the lower reaches of the forest are really beautiful because they're bamboo. So depending on the time of year, often around the rainy season, March, April, May, there's a lot of bamboo shoots, and the gorillas are quite close to the boundaries and eating those shoots. And then again in September, October, November, same thing again. These are the rainy periods, so that can be a thing. They do come out of the forest. So this was taken outside of the forest. It was cold, it was raining, and they were eating eucalyptus. So they do come out of the forest, and we want to be prepared for that movement that I was saying to you. I mean, this again was shot at about 400th of a second, and it's about having us there that we can say he's going to chest beat, get ready, make sure your settings are good, take lots of photos, and we set you up for success prior to the being in there, and then obviously through coaching while you're in there. And this is another one with one of the gorillas out in the pyrethrum, eating the pyrethrum, which is the stuff that that's used to put the insect repellent on your clothing. It's made from pyrethrum. But rain is inevitable. And like I said earlier, the depth it creates by having water drops, having the rain falling, and having these things. This guy was like washing his hair. He was way cool. I really loved this guy. And again, the wide angle shots that are created in these spaces, because of the proximity that we get to them, can create some very different and beautiful, beautiful images. And that's not the last place we go. The last place we do is the golden monkeys, which are the most beautiful little things. They're quite photogenic. We really enjoy spending time with them. We have one trek before we go back. We have our last shower, and we head back to Kigali to go and enjoy a flight back home filled with memories, memory cards filled with photographs, and hearts filled with joy. So I hope you enjoyed that. Brooke, if you've got any questions for me, I'd be happy to take them.
That was stunning, Rich. Oh my gosh. I wish I was there with you and everybody who's joining this trip this year. I am so jealous in the best of ways. So everybody in your control panel, your go-to control panel, there is a little questions box. We will take questions for about the next like 8 or 9 minutes. So if there's anything that you would like to ask Rich, go ahead and plop that in there and we will get through as many as we can until the top of the hour. So let's see what we have here. Could you maybe elaborate a little further, Rich, on the fitness level that is required to successfully do this trip?
I think that's a great question. Thank you, Brooke, and whoever asked it. But this is a physical trip. There's no two ways about it. And understanding your limitations within it helps us manage a group of people that go with it. Fitness requirement, I would say, if you can walk up 10 flights of stairs and back down them with fairly, like pretty good stamina, you'll be fine. If you can't, that shouldn't stop you from doing this. It might stop you joining a group trip. So to give an example, we had a lady who had two bad knees. She had to cancel the trip twice to have knee replacements, and she was going to bring her mother along, who was in her 90s, to come and do the trip. And they'd booked stretches. Now you could do a private trip. You could do a trip and let us know that that's what you wish to do, and you can pay extra money to get a stretcher where somebody will put you in the basket and carry you to the gorillas, and then you can walk around whether you're there and then come out. But it's about understanding that that is your position. Ego should be left behind in this trip because it's not about a fitness test, but going to a personal trainer, walking at least 5 miles without any problems and in hilly terrain, because the gradients can be very steep. And then we often say to you, okay, cool, take 2 porters. So you have push and pull. You get 2 hands on your buttocks being pushing you up a hill, one handing, holding your hand, pulling you up. You're not carrying your bag. We got to find the point in between, the happy point. So to answer that question is, how long is a piece of string? It's a difficult thing to answer. The fitter you are, the more fun you're going to have. The fitter you are, the less you're going to impact a group travel. If you're worried about fitness, you can also organize private travel with us, where you can contact NatHab and do a private trip, and we can far easily get you to something, especially when it requires stretches, because I don't think anyone should be left behind on a trip like this. And the first part, when we're in Murchison Falls, there's no issues. You're in a boat the whole day, you're in a vehicle the whole day. When we get to the chimps, you may have to sit out if you're not fit enough, but we will assess at that point and we can work it out. So I think that's a really broad answer. A lot of people can make it. You just need to put in the effort beforehand to make sure you're in the fittest position that you should be in.
That was a great explanation. Thank you so much for that. Next, could you elaborate on the bathroom situation?
There are toilets at every single, flushable toilets at every single lodge. Even the one that is in the middle of nowhere, where there's just those tents where we look like we're wild camping. There's a flushable toilet in every single one of those rooms, which is wonderful. When we're driving, and we do a fair amount of driving through the trip, the first part we drive about 8 hours. It's pretty much a whole day from leaving Entebbe to getting to Murchison Falls. We have specific spots that we stop. We have lunch stops, and we find the cleanest toilets that we can find for you. But that being said, every tree is a lavatory, and sometimes you just need to go in the wild, especially when we're on the walks with the gorillas or with the chimps. We have to find a spot to go. You just let myself or your expedition leader or one of the local guides know, and they'll find a safe space where you're not going to have a safari ant bite you on the bum, or a nettle catch you on the bum, because that would not be fun. And yeah, the toilets are pretty well looked after throughout the trip.
Fantastic. Next, should people bring walking sticks or are they provided on the trip?
They are provided on the trip, especially in the gorillas. There's wooden ones that you can choose from. We call it a third leg. They pretty much give it to everyone. In the chimp treks, they don't. So if you're accustomed to walking with walking sticks, they're pretty lightweight, so you could put them in your baggage and bring them along. But if you're not accustomed to walking sticks, I would say don't bring them and just utilize the ones that are there.
That's great. Fantastic advice. Absolutely. Next, could you elaborate on safety in both ways, both from like a human standpoint, traveling to this part of the world, and also being in proximity to these large animals?
Okay, let's start with the most controversial of them, the gorillas not being the one that you're seeing in the picture there. But the areas around East Africa are war torn. The Republic of Congo is next door to a lot of spaces, and there have been occurrences that happened a few years ago that shook people up a little bit. We changed our entire itinerary to make sure it was 100% as safe as possible for our clients, as as we could. And where we go and what we do is all based on client clients getting to see and guests getting to see the most amazing things while doing so safely. So from the human standpoint, it's beautiful. The people in Uganda and Rwanda are really, really friendly and beautiful. And the occurrences that have happened in the past have fortunately never touched us. So we just make sure that we put ourselves in the right place. And then secondly, within the animals, while animals can be unpredictable, the chimps may swing a stick, but in general, we're very, very safe. I've been through 135 gorilla treks, or 130 odd, somewhere there, and I've been pushed over by gorillas. I've been touched by gorillas. We've had people's pants torn by gorillas. We've had people run at by chimps, and everyone survived, and all they had was a big smile on their face. So in terms of safety, this is a very beautiful and safe place to go to.
That's very reassuring. Thank you. I know we're getting close to the end, but there is a topic that keeps coming up over and over and over. If you wouldn't mind answering one more question, could you go into cell phone photography? Can we get good images with a phone? And if so, are there any accessories or stuff that you bring to make cell phone photography better?
So cell phone photography is 100% possible. It's really beautiful and you can get away with it, no problems. The tips and tricks I would say is, if you are bringing along a cell phone, is to have the latest versions of those phones as possible, because of the quality of camera. Each time they upgrade these cell phones, the quality of the camera, the quality of the equipment, the quality of the firmware that's on there to take the photos improves drastically. Um, it also helps that if you have a little bit more zoom, so everything from the later Android phones to the latest iPhones all have a bit more zoom reach. I know my phone's got like a 5 times zoom, which is wonderful. It doesn't replace, you're never going to get the same quality as what you're going to get from a bigger camera. The bigger the sensor, the better the camera. What I can say is that a lot of the guides will share their images afterwards. It's not a promise I do every time, but I can't promise that anyone else is going to. And sometimes you can just enjoy those things. I would help you with the cell phone photography, show you how to work your exposure compensation, tell you tips and tricks to get the most out of that in there. And all the expedition leaders will have some knowledge on being able to move you forward on those things. If you're a cell phone photographer on its own, I don't know if the photo expedition is maybe where you should be. Maybe just cell phones, you could go on a normal trip and get the same advice at the same speed. It's just about who you wish to surround yourself with. Let's put it that way.
That is a very good point. Thank you so much for that, Rich.
My
So that is
pleasure.
the last question we will take today. So I will turn it back to you for any last closing comments.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And I hope you got a lot out of this. And I hope to see you on one of the trips this year or next year. It's going to be amazing. And it's a beautiful space to be. Thanks, NatHab, for making this all possible. And have a wonderful 2025.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today, Rich. And everybody, remember, if you have additional questions, if you're already booked, the concierge team will be more than happy to help you. And if you would like to get booked on this trip, our adventure specialist team would also be more than happy to help you. So thank you to everybody who tuned in. And remember, if you're a part of a photo club and would like a NetHab photo guide to speak to your members about nature and travel photography, please email us at webinars@nethab.com. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nethab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.